Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is Craig McInnes, co-CEO at myCaribou, and I will be moderating today's session. Thank you for joining us. Just a little bit of background, myCaribou is a channel optimization platform built specifically for medical device manufacturers and distributors that will help you accelerate your growth through stronger partnerships. The myCaribou platform allows you to match and connect with over 20,000 distributors and 20,000 manufacturers from over 125 countries around the globe. myCaribou provides collaboration tools to work with existing and new partners in secure workspaces. This collaboration helps drive successful growth. And lastly, myCaribou provides dashboards where you can monitor your market, partner, and product performance globally. As a thank you for attending today's webinar, we will provide an opportunity for all attendees to use the myCaribou platform for an extended free trial until the end of February. And if time allows, towards the end of the presentation, I will do a quick little demo to show you in particular how you can find, vet, and select new partners in the platform. The thesis for today's webinar is as follows. For manufacturers and distributors, finding, vetting, and selecting new partners is difficult. The risks are significant, and the consequences of poor partner choice include lost money, effort, and time. I always like to show the breakdown of registrations to give you a sense of who's on the presentation today by company type. So we have hundreds of companies from over 45 countries and representing 56% of our manufacturers, 30% distributors, dealers, and sales agents, and 14% other, which is predominantly logistics, regulatory, and market consultants. So I'm really hoping for some great questions from this diverse group today. Now, let me introduce you to today's panelists to discuss this. Together, they have almost 70 years of experience in distribution and manufacturing the medical device, equipment, and supplies industry. First, we have Adela Vagnarova. For more than 20 years, Adela has gained a wealth of healthcare industry channel creation experience on a global scale. As a senior director for Lannett Group, a major Czech Republic-based manufacturer, Adela has established and managed indirect distributor partners throughout Latin America, the Middle East, Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, as well as North America. Jacques Lafont is a transformational leader with over 25 years experience, most recently serving as the president of Cardinal Health EMEA. Prior to Cardinal Health, Jacques was a vice president with Hillrom International. Jacques has successfully developed medical devices businesses through organic and external growth, having worked on all continents and multiple areas. Jacques has a diverse cultural and functional background. He's established and led large direct and indirect sales organizations in multiple countries. He now focuses on helping private equity investors identify, execute, and operate acquisitions in medtech globally. And finally, we have Sandy Wright, who has an established track record of over 20 years in sales leadership with some of the largest and most recognized global companies in the medical device industry, including Nestle Healthcare Nutrition, Baxter, Cardinal Health, and Philips. As the founder and CEO of Andau Medical, Sandy is using her decades of experience to build a world-class medical and dental device distribution company with expertise in sales, marketing, regulatory, and distribution in the US and Canada. We will provide contact information for all three panelists at the end of this discussion today. Now, as we get started into the questions with the group, please feel free to ask your questions, and you can do so in the Q&A panel. We will attempt to get to all the questions, and at the end of the initial discussion, pardon me, if we don't get to them, we will follow up with responses after the webinar. So let's get started in terms of the panel discussion. So our first question is, let's start with what's at risk when finding and selecting new partners? What are the impacts of choosing the wrong partner? And for this one, we're going to start with Sandy first.
Thanks, Craig. As a distributor, when we select the wrong partner, there's significant risk associated with that, including time and resources that could have been spent elsewhere with little to no return on investment. And ultimately, that leads to lost revenue. More importantly, we're also put in a position where we may disappoint our customers if we don't have the right products, regulatory approvals, support resources, and supply chain in place with our manufacturing partners. one of our core values at Andau Medical is that we set the bar exceptionally high on customer service. So it's really mission critical for us that we only partner with companies that align with these values to avoid reputational risk. All distributors have stories to share about partnerships that misalign, but the key is really to ensure that we have a solid set of criteria that's in place as our non-negotiables to minimize the risk in selecting the wrong partners. And we'll talk about, I think maybe later on in the discussion, what some of those criteria are. And, as an organization, we've really been lucky enough to have selected great manufacturing partners. And we do continue to evolve our selection criteria as we learn from our experiences.
Great. How about you, Jacques?
Yeah, thank you, Craig. Yeah, I think Sandy touched upon a number of the risks. Obviously, there's the reputational risk. This is probably the highest because it's very hard to turn around a brand that has been tarnished by a wrong distributor, or the other way around, when you've not been able to service your customers when you had made commitments to them because of a supplier not being able to supply. So I think the reputation for me is the highest, is because at the end of the day, your distributors are your image in the market, and likewise you are the image of the manufacturer in the market. And then there's also the exit cost. When you've invested into a relationship, whether it's regulatory cost and then potential licensing transition that you have to do if you want to exit the relationship, the separation fee potentially. And then there's also the question of the inventory. If you're a manufacturer and then the distributor has some inventory of your products, you have to make the tough call of deciding what to do with it, if you take it back or if you let them potentially dump it in the market and then further destroy the value of your product. So I think there's a number of risks, and as Sandy said, you really have to be very thorough and systematic on how you select your partners.
Great. Adela, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, well, I think it was almost everything important said, really, from both of my co-speakers. Maybe I would add a little bit on the actual momentum of surprise that you lose for your competitors, right? Because if you enter the country for the first time and you do really a proper launch and you have good partner, you can actually seize time until your competition finds out who you are, what are your specifications, what are your actually price setup, and what are the tools that you're using to actually place your products into the market. So that could be very fruitful. And if you lose this, they already are ready with your second chance. So I think to find right partner is really, really critical and very difficult. And being with Lynette, 20 years, and having the opportunity to do it at so many regions and countries, right? I would not underestimate and give it really enough time and really do some thorough analysis. First, your analysis of the market, what are your actually, expectations, and then when finding the partners, just to reconfirm it. And then you will also see whether this partner is really the right one, if they have the information that you're expecting and that you need to be successful. So yeah, probably financial, time, efforts, reputation, but reputation is really key.
Yeah.
If you lose it.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot from the companies we deal with, is the brand reputation that can suffer on both sides as well. So that's great. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of those key success factors in a few minutes here. The second question is, how do you go about finding new partners, and why is finding the right partner so difficult? And this time I'll start first with Adela, if you want to take a shot at this one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, there are hundreds of ways, I would say. Lynette usually was looking for partners at trade shows, which was quite, I would say, common. So before COVID, we were going to Medica or Hospitalar in Latin America, or Arab Health in Middle East, or the actually Chinese exhibition, which I'm sorry, I don't know the names. And that was usually not, that much actually for looking for end customers or finding some leads. These trade shows are usually to find distributor or the distributor looking for a manufacturer, because you had opportunity to actually not only see the people usually, but also to see their product, right? And to touch it and test it and have some first experience, which of course, makes it easier, or make the actually time, it consumes less time when you meet at a spot with the product. So that was our common actually practice. Then we were using the actually embassies and the economical departments of the Czech embassy, when it was really some very exotic country to enter the market, and actually we're using in a lot of cases their help. There are some capable people at these positions that they can help you. It depends, but they can be. We were also participating at the healthcare missions. So we are actually part of the several association in Czech Republic. It's Association of Healthcare Manufacturers and Healthcare Providers. And those associations are doing actively special healthcare missions. So we were going with them to several regions. It is a little bit more efficient than to go to some general economical mission with your prime minister or with your president to some country, because this is really focused on the topic that you want to discuss. And if it's well prepared, you even can get to the hospitals and to some end users and actually listen their needs, and maybe even they can recommend you their preferences, who should be the supplier, right? We are also using some, I would say, word of mouth practices. So with some big players in the industry, like for example, Drager company, which is like big player in ICU machines. So we actually entered through them or via them to Latin America, because we were complementary to their products, and we were doing, or what they were doing together with our beds, bundles for the actual ICU deliveries. And as they are, well, very, have high quality of the products and great reputation for that, for us, of course, it was a great honor. And it was also a great, sign for the end customer that we actually deserve this, being on qualitatively the same level as Drager was. So that was our, for example, launch or entry strategy for Latin America. Yeah.
Interesting. Jacques, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Honestly, I think as a manufacturer, Adela covered a lot of the scenarios. With Hiram, we were a manufacturer, so very similar to Lynette in terms of how we approach the search and the sourcing of partner and distributors. With Cardinal Health, we are both a manufacturer and also a distributor. So we had both sides of the partnership. As a manufacturer, before myCaribou, of course, there was no easy way to source distributor, honestly. What I found to be the best approach is actually to leverage the network. So we would discuss with other distributors in other areas or other countries for recommendation of who they know are good partners in neighboring countries, for example, or if you have a strong partner in acute care, who would be a good partner in extended care. So we would try to leverage the word of mouth, as Adela said, as much as we can, because typically you would have better quality of names. The other approach is very traditional, would be the trade shows, the Medicas and the Arab Health and the Hospitalar and so forth, to try to look for distributors that indeed would carry would be present in the segment, but would not have a competitor product. So complementary products. Some companies, for example, that are in the OR, but not with your products. Like, for example, you have surgical gloves. There's plenty of people would be in the OR selling some type of products to OR nurses or even surgeons, but would not have the gloves, for example. So those would be the scenarios that we go after. And then as a distributor, it's slightly different. I'm sure Sandy will have a lot more details, but I think for us, what really worked well was a very proactive approach based on customer needs. So it was really about addressing portfolio gaps or looking for innovation, an innovative approach to solve a customer challenge. So it really started by listening to the customers understanding what they were buying, what they were purchasing, what would be a nice complement to the portfolio, and then be proactively around finding companies that would be able to supply those products that would not be represented in the countries where we are or would not be significantly present. So that would be really how we would go after sourcing the products for the portfolio.
Excellent. And Sandy has built Andal Medical after, as I mentioned in the bio, decades of experience, both in manufacturing and distribution, and has built up a pretty impressive portfolio of products that they represent the U.S. and Canada. So I'm interested in your perspective as you've done that over the last several years. How you found your partners and why is it so difficult?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because Jacques did touch on quite a few of the points that we would touch on as well. And our market really is around innovation. We're bringing innovative products to market. So when we do our search, we're looking for products that really address a pain point or a real world clinical or patient need that exists. So, we can really hone in on those key areas by simply, reaching out in our networks. But beyond that, it's really difficult. There's Google, there's, the embassies, as Adela spoke to, there's, many a fishing expedition that we've gone on to try and find innovation. So, there's definitely got to be a better way to do it. And we're really excited about myCaribou because one of the key things for us here in Canada is the Health Canada guidelines, the regulatory for class 2 to class 4 devices. It's the MDSAP program. Since Health Canada instituted that a few years ago, it's really a tough barrier for us to go out and find partners that actually meet that regulatory criteria. So, with myCaribou, that's one of the search refining capabilities on the platform that we're really excited about because it's going to help us vet potential suppliers. And we are a very curated portfolio at Andau. So we have 3 divisions. We have a dental division, an acute care division, and a home care division. And within those portfolios, we have really specific things that we're trying to focus on innovating around. So it's a very targeted search. And I think that myCaribou is going to nicely line up with how we go about finding channel partners.
Yeah, and I'll show that towards the end of the discussion today, the search capabilities, the ability to shortlist and then connect with potential partners. And one of the things we've added, just to Sandy's point, is the concept of allowing distributors in particular, but it also applies to manufacturers, to put in a series of questions that they want answered when a manufacturer reaches out to them. So for example, in her case, do you have MDSAP certification is one of the entry points that would be part of that. So I'll show that later on as time allows at the very end. In the meantime, let's hit question number 3 here. So we have, oops, there we go. How does market strategy affect partners selection? And this time I'll start with Jacques.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, actually, as a manufacturer, I think that your market strategy should really guide your partner selection process. It's really, I think, tightly linked. The way I look at market strategy myself is I would segment basically my opportunities in 3 types of markets, and each ask for a different type of partner. The first one are the established markets, those countries where you already have significant established presence. You have a fairly stable market share. You already have a solid channel coverage with your partners. And here the key is really to have a solid and reliable network of partners that will have a strong service to your customers, right? I mean, to get there, you probably already have some strong partners so that they help you get this market share that you have. And really what you want is you want to keep this presence, you want to continue challenging them, continue to support them, but you already know that you have strong partners. The second types of markets are the growth markets. And those are really your strategically selected growth markets. Emerging markets, a new strategic country, a country where you're not present, but you know that there is a large market for you to be able to seize. a new market segment also in an established market, something that you want to enter. You're strong in acute care, you want to go in long-term care, you're strong in oncology and you want to go in some other specialty, or you have a new product that you want to launch. So in those great growth situations, you need a partner that will actually invest in your product lines, that will develop the market for you, and that has a channel already to your target. So you want to really take the time to select a partner which is present, in that segment that you want to go after, and has complementary product, and that is looking for additional opportunities, portfolio opportunities. So probably spend a bit more time to make sure that you bank on the right partner there, because you're going to embark on a co-journey to develop that market and make sure that that you gain the market share that you deserve with your offering. And then the third type are really opportunistic markets. You have those large one-off tenders in the country. For example, I remember we had a very, very large state-run country for Libya. That's not a strategic country, that's not a growth market, but that's a large tender that you want to be able to go and participate in. Or you have a single opportunity through one single distributor, or current distributor comes to you and say, hey, I'm active in this country, but I could participate in this large tender in this other country. So in this scenario, it's a little bit different. Really, what matters is whether or not that partner will be able to help you win the market, right? It's what are the highest odds, who has the highest odds of winning the business based on relationship that they have, based on past performance with a specific account, with a specific Ministry of Health. So in that case, it's more of a opportunistic relationship that you want to build. So, to my point, I think that based on how you look the opportunity and the market strategy that you have, you probably have different set of criteria to select a partner.
Great, and Adele, I know you've been with Lynette a long time. Lynette is a very successful, growth-oriented global business now with distribution partners all over the world. I'm curious your thoughts on this question.
Well, I must agree with everything Jacques just said, because that was very thorough, important, and actually what is telling you what are the next steps when actually choosing or when selecting the partner is your strategy, right? So what you want. If you want to actually, dedicate or give the partner the complete territory or the complete country, if you want to actually focus on a certain type of your product, depending how big the company is and how many portfolio or how many different products in different portfolio it has, right? Or even you could be looking for, even not being opportunistic country or partner, you could be looking only for some specific part of the service you're looking for, like just a service company to your existing sales distributor because they don't have that capacity. I mean, there is really, 101 options what you could be looking for and what is your best fit, but you need to know what are you actually looking for, right? So this is important to know from the beginning what partner you look for, because if you're not clear and you kind of don't meet the expectations of the other, it means mistrust, and it's a trouble from early beginning. So I think it's good to have clear strategy. And to be open and fair and say to the partners, look, those are our expectations, do you are aligned with that, and will you actually do that together with us? Are you okay with that? I think this is really important to be clear and actually go what you need to go after, what goal you need to go, because then it's loss of time for everybody.
Adele, remind me again, the number of countries you are in currently with distributors is roughly?
Well, it's more than 100 countries, and I don't know how many partners we have in our partner development program. I guess 180 or 200. I really don't know. Sorry for that. But we, of course, because it's very actually a rigorous program, we try everybody who is starting with us to get on, because we have a great experience. And basically what you're doing with the actually myCaribou, the actually, way how to manage the relationship, what you're offering, what kind of tools you're having. So we have very similar in our internal partner development program, right? So it is important to, as I said, not to be clear about expectations of the manufacturer and to be aligned with actually what the distributor also wants, because otherwise you know, losing time, money, and
right.
And you can lose your first chance, and it's no good.
Yeah, excellent. And Sandy.
Yeah, so, you know, it's interesting, the way we look at market strategy, really, we look at it by product. So we have two buckets that we generally put products into. It's a little bit broad, but one of our buckets is commodity and the other bucket is innovation. And so if you look very simply from a product perspective, the market strategy in those two areas really differs. So it's very similar in some ways to what Jacques said in terms of growth markets versus established markets. And you know, when you look at how you're going to enter a country, we've seen many manufacturers make this mistake where they'll enter into a country with an innovation and they want to spread and scale that innovation as quickly as possible. So they'll choose as many distributors as they possibly can, thinking that it's going to give them more feet on the street. It's going to give them, you know, more noise in the market. But what ends up happening in that case is that you then have internal competition within a market. The pricing structure sometimes is all over the map, and it's a race to the bottom where nobody wins. So we've seen many companies make this mistake. And by the time they come to us, they're saying, look, we've got all these distributors in place, but we're not seeing growth in the market. We believe we've got an amazing innovation and there's significant market opportunity, but why don't those two things match? And it really is critical. I think, you know, if you have an innovation where, you know, there's education, support, coordination of market activities, pricing and resource that needs to be put into this, or an investment by the distributor, then you really do need to be very selective in terms of having that exclusivity in the market with your distributor partner. And it doesn't have to be the entire market, but there has to be very clearly defined geographic boundaries for that distributor. So that's something that we really truly believe in. If it's a commodity, it's a little bit of a different story. You know, if you're selling gloves, for example, or PPE, you know, a lot of people are in the market selling those, and you can sell them through many distributors, and that's okay. But where you have that innovation, it does require a different approach in the market. So just something to be mindful of.
Yeah, it's a great segue into the final coming questions here around selecting, evaluating suppliers as well as and distributors, and as well as looking at your percentage of their selling capacity or selling focus. So I'm going to go right back to Sandy on this next one. This is specifically from a distribution or distributor perspective. How do you evaluate new suppliers, and what are the warning signs or red flags that a distributor needs to be aware of when vetting new suppliers? And this one I'll ask Sandy and Jacques, and then we'll do a similar one for manufacturers, and I'll ask Jacques and Adela on that one.
Yeah, so, you know, when we look at new products and we're taking new products on, we've actually developed a bit of a scoring system that we refer to as MSF, or Market Success Factors. And the scoring system is based on a set of 7 criteria that really include things like, you know, the needs in the market. How big of a pain point are we solving? You know, are the targets, you know, quite narrow, or are they broad? Do they line up with what we currently do? What's the market size, the market opportunity? What's the simplicity of adoption? Is it difficult to adopt the technology, or is it easy to adopt? And there's a few others, but you know, when we evaluate, we really have a good look at those market success factors, which will give us an idea of what the time and cost relative to the technology would be to get this out into the marketplace. So for products that are not necessarily technology driven, we have a little bit of a different set of criteria. Really, you know, in terms of, is it strategic? Does it align with our current call points? Does our team have the bandwidth and the skill set to take on that product line? So that's really how we evaluate which product lines we do take on. In terms of warning signs, we've definitely learned over the last number of years that there definitely are warning signs. So we always need to be mindful. Sometimes the old saying, if it looks too good to be true, it is too good to be true. So, really, we have to make sure we're looking for these warning signs. And it's, how willing is our partner to co-invest? Or are they just looking to transfer risk onto us and be very transactional? And I'll give you an example. A key indicator would be, are they willing to invest in supporting demo equipment at cost? Or are they trying to make money on demo equipment? And what about the training and the materials? Are they willing to invest in training? So that's really one of the warning signs. I would say another one is that, their expectations are not aligned with ours, or maybe they're not achievable. And with expectations, it could be around time that it's going to take to get a product out to market. It could be around, rules of engagement or frequency of communication, how involved they want to be. Sometimes that's a great thing. We want involvement. And, sometimes we just have to make sure that we're all aligned on what that right level of communication looks like. And finally, does the manufacturer really understand their product, and does it have a good fit in our market? We've seen really passionate inventors and companies believe that they've got, the best product that everybody needs, but we may have a different picture when we vet the product with our customers. So that's really our assessment on looking for alignment and warning signs.
That's great. And Jacques, obviously with Cardinal Health and running the EMEA business, you were both manufacturer and distributor. So you've got a kind of unique perspective, and you'll get to chime in on both these questions. But what are your thoughts on this from the distribution perspective?
I think Sandy was really complete. I like the idea around the market needs and the fit, right? There must be a fit into the portfolio. So is that product going to really be helping my customers? Can I be successful with that product? And then of course, can we make a solid business case with this partnership so that we can all be profitable? There's enough of a market size also so that if I invest in growing that market and that brand, there will be a return longer term on this. So I think those are the fundamental, right? Is there a need? Can I fulfill that need? And then at the end of the day, is there a profitable picture for the partners there? That's the first one. And then the second one is around the culture and the company fit. I think Sandy touched on that. Is that an innovation driven company, or are they just trying to enlist as many distributors as they can and have a very opportunistic approach to the market, which was not what we were trying to get at. We were really trying to build a business with a comprehensive offering for the customers. And we don't want to have another distributor carrying the same product, for example, or we didn't want to have a supplier just pulling out of the country when we had built a nice business together. So I think do we have aligned objectives? Do we have aligned targets? As Sandy said, will they be able to invest and support us both on the training, on the regulatory side, supporting us with the right documents? Are they going to be willing to co-invest in some trade shows and some events so that we would co-brand booth and events like this, or customer events? And also, what was their reputation as far as distributor and partnership was concerned? So for us, the red flags was, for example, a reluctance from the manufacturer to share marketing expenses. That's clearly a big red flag. It means that they're more opportunistic than really strategic in their relationship. Do they have a history of switching distributors or enlisting multiple distributors on the same market? That's also for us a red flag based on how we want it to be seen as a distributor and in the market.
Excellent. I just get to take a quick second to remind everyone on the call, if you have questions, I'm sure you may have follow-on questions to the ones I'm asking. Certainly feel free to put those in the Q&A panel or the chat panel. We'll keep an eye on both, but preferably in the Q&A panel. Any questions you might have, and we'll try to get to those towards the end. Now, if I switch over to looking at the same question from the manufacturing side, and I know, Adela, you've had direct experience in bringing on new distribution partners in in Latin America, in North America, in Europe. So you've got a unique perspective, having done this over a long period of time and quite successfully. What are your thoughts on this from a manufacturing perspective? Same question.
Well, Lynette has, I would say, is very demanding about tight cooperation with the distributors, right? Sometimes in some countries, it's a lot cultural, right? So in some countries where maybe people are a little bit more conservative, they're not that much actually willing to, you know, open their local strategy or open their cards and their market approach. And that I find in like Lynette's setup quite problematic, because we are really eager to be on site. So what we actually do when we have our regional sales managers that are supporting different regions and supporting the distributors, we actually want them to be as much at the countries and with the distributor as possible, to actually understand the market, to understand the needs of the distributor and the customer, and also to be able to give as much as close picture to the management or top management of Lynette, what are the regional and country's needs, right? So my experience is, okay, we have partner development program. We have, of course, you know, like clear and set up actually evaluation goals, like, you know, revenue levels, if they're meeting the plan and meeting the quarterly forecast, if they're having the sales team trained, if they're having the service team trained, if they're having up-to-date samples, if they do any marketing activities. I must say this all is always co-funded with Lynette, or we are giving some like very beneficial actually, you know, discounts and price levels, for example, on samples, because we are aware that you need to be present at the sample, and actually, you know, selling samples and getting revenue over the samples is not a long-term strategy, right? This is not a, you know, long-term plan. So we really are very welcoming every activity, and we are very happy about, you know, proactive partners that are coming to us and saying, look, you know, there is this congress, we would like to go there, you know, what is your opinion, would you like to contribute, or what is your actually way how you will support us in that? So, you know, the setup actual levels is very similar to what you have at myCaribou, like what we follow, right? But I would like to enhance that. You really, my experience of like having and working long time successfully in many regions in really tight cooperation with the partners, because this is really bringing the high levels of growth and giving you, you know, this great knowledge about your market. So if you just like, you know, leave it with them, it's not a good decision.
Yeah. Can I just add on to that from a distributor perspective, Adela? I think you hit on a really important topic, which really is about trust, and having that open, trusted relationship has to be there in order to really succeed in the market. And as a distributor, you know, if we can align with our manufacturing partners, where we can open up the doors and say, come on in, let's work on this market, let's get this market grown together, let's you know, make sure we're advancing the business together. And having that high level of trust and transparency, I think, is really critical to success. So if there's any sort of feeling on one side or the other that there's some hesitation in terms of trust, you know, I would say there's got to be some underlying reason for that. And it could be maybe the contract, maybe there's a termination clause in the contract and they're concerned about it. And, or maybe there's been, you know, some circumstances in their past where other companies have worked with them and then burnt them and taken their information and gone to another distributor. So I think it comes down to trust and transparency. And if you can get to that high level of trust and transparency, that's where you're going to see great things happen.
Agree.
Excellent. Jacques, with your manufacturer hat on, do you have anything you want to add to that conversation?
Yeah, look, very, very similar to what Adela and Sandy just mentioned. Trust, I agree, is very important. I think that in the early days, when you discuss with the distributor there's a very formal and fact-based due diligence around, do they cover the market geographically, and then the different market types, public, private, acute care, extended care, home care, different clinical areas. So there's a number of elements like that you can gather on how many feet they have on the ground and so forth. Capabilities around commercial back office, do they have a tendering experience? Do they have a contract management group? Can they manage the volume of orders and then the distribution capability? So there's a lot of hard facts. But at the end of the day, what really makes or breaks a relationship is more of the soft side, like the business values, the alignment on the priorities, especially when you go international in some markets, ethics, compliance are very important also elements. Understand that you have the same way of looking at those key items. Are they able to build your brand? Do they want to build their own brand, or do they also are able to act as your brand representative in the market? And then the clinical positioning, Sandy talked about, commodity or innovation. Are they the type of organization that will be able to sell your added value that you want to sell in the proper way? So this is, for me, the part of the softer things that you need to be able to assess early on, so that as you start to invest in this relationship, you know that there will be a trusting long-term relationship, especially if it's one of your strategic markets. So for me, some of the red flags I would look for, I would look at the market reputation. Try to discuss with some key customers and what they think of that partner. I would also look at, have they lost recently some key brands, because that may be a sign also of some issues with the company. Have they had some recent key personal turnover? Are there been some key members of the leadership who left? Are they willing to sign up for some minimum sales? So that needs to come at the end of having a really clear, common understanding of the markets, because as a manufacturer, you have your market research, of course, but they have more detailed, in-depth understanding of how fast of a change adoption can the market sustain. How fast can you actually enter that market? So there must be some common understanding, but then they have to be willing to sign up for some growth there and for some commitments, and then also looking at their marketing program. How do they plan to include your brand in their marketing program? So there's a number of things that you really have to look at, and I think, as Sandy said, it's not just hard things, it's also how comfortable you are with the way this company is doing business.
Well, it's interesting. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat and the Q&A as we're going through this, and I guess the elephant in the room on part of the conversation here about openness and trust between the manufacturer and the distributor sharing information is the fear on the part of the distributor that the manufacturer may end up going direct to the market. It's a tough question to throw out. I'm going to throw it out anyway, see if anybody has anything to comment on that. The fears of the manufacturer going direct in your market, and how you balance that with that openness. And
I think as a distributor, that's something that is a risk. It absolutely is a risk. But my feeling and experience has been that, if we do a great job as a distributor and we delight our manufacturing partner, we're growing the market and we're aligned and we're collaborative and we're open and transparent, there's very little reason for them to make that significant shift, because it will take a lot of resources and investment on the manufacturer's part. If, for some other strategic reasons, they decide to go direct, I believe that it's not something that happens overnight. So there should be a lot of notice and warning. I've very rarely seen manufacturers who are very satisfied with their distributors go direct. It's typically a result of a distribution or channel partnership that's not been viable.
Great.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jacques.
Yeah, as a manufacturer, I would definitely echo Sandy's comment. My experience is in the cases where you have a strong distributor, but for some strategic reason you want to go direct. In these instances, what I ended up doing is acquiring the distributor. That I had the opportunity to do that actually twice. That's just the right way, because if that distributor has the trained sales force, if they have the command of that market, and they are doing a great job for you, then going direct may just ruin all of that efforts that has been built over time. So then you do an acquisition potentially, and you have that conversation. So I think that I've never been in a situation where I had a very strong distributor, things were going well, we were growing nicely the business, or we were really securing a very good market share, and we were both of us were having a healthy financially relationship, and then we would just put that at risk. I never saw that.
So that openness collaboration should drive a successful partnership. The successful partnership makes the distributor happy, makes the manufacturer happy. Ideally, then they stay the course because they're satisfied. So
yeah.
Okay.
Just to add a quick one, because I saw a comment on the chat. Yes, you also have the hybrid model, which works very effectively, especially in those established markets, where because you want to have more of a better handle of the market, you would actually complement the distributor with some of your own sales assets in the field. That's something that we've done, especially in the Middle East, for example. That's a fairly common, but still, you maintain the distributor as a key element of the relationship with the customer. You want to control how the commercial message is going into the market. So you have your own people potentially detailing the product, but at the end of the day, the relationship of the customer is still managed by the distributor. That's another, let's say, in-between scheme that we've seen.
Excellent. Okay, so this leads really nicely. Well, actually, before Jacques mentioned mergers and acquisitions, I did want to mention that we have an upcoming, as part of our podcast series, we're going to be focusing on M&A, both the distribution and the manufacturer side as well. So look out for that topic. In the meantime, question 6. So again, we're going to focus this one from a distribution perspective. So I'm going to start with Sandy on this. And it's a good segue from what we've been talking about, which is, as a distributor, how do you decide how much selling time to allocate to the supplier's products? So when you bring on a new partner, how much selling time would you dedicate to it? And how do you make sure as well that you have significant commitment from the supplier to support those sales efforts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I do want to actually frame that around a couple of the questions I'm seeing in the chat box as well. So one of the questions is it better to go with a large distributor or a small distributor? And how do you get distributor focus and attention and time when there's thousands of products in the portfolio? So that's a great segue. What we do know, and for any of us who've been in distribution for any significant period of time, the biggest challenge is allocation of resource towards specific product lines. And that's why at Andau we've actually looked at doing things quite differently. So when we bring a product into the company, we actually look at what the market objectives are, or we look at the total available market, or TAM, and then we assess what the objectives are from a market perspective. And then we look at what resources will be required to achieve that. And so it's a little bit of a backwards thing to do for most distributors, because I know typically a lot of the large distributors, not all of them, but some of them start with, these are our sales reps. This is, the reps that we have. These are their call points. So let's just put something else in the bag. And what ends up happening is you have these overinflated bags where, if an opportunity presents, they'll talk about a product, but they may not be proactive. And, that can be a strategy if the company that you're representing is aligned to that strategy. But for us, we really do want to reverse that. So we start with doing a bit of an alignment session to determine what's our market objective? What are we trying to achieve? How does that align to what the manufacturer is trying to achieve? And then what resources do we need? So as a small boutique distributor, we really do have the flexibility to put more focus around the products that we feel need to have good representation, and they don't get lost in the bags and portfolio, as they would with a distributor that has thousands and thousands of products in the bag. And when that relationship doesn't go well, that's when we hear from the manufacturers. So.
And Jacques, you've been on both sides of this, so your thoughts, and feel free to stray into the manufacturer side, because then I'll pass it to Adele to talk to that as well.
Okay, yeah, I think on the distributor side, Sandy has a very structured way to go about it. We also try to have that kind of approach. Basically, we would make sure that we allocate our selling time based on the business opportunity, right? Is the ability to grow, the ability to drive profitability. So we would basically give more focus on most profitable products. That was the key driver. And then that's why it's important from the get-go, as Sandy said, is that there's very clear discussion and expectation with the manufacturer around what can we do with that product line, and then what's the best way to sell it. So, and very early on, you can see if there's a manufacturer, is actually getting involved in the regulatory and the launch phase. Are they available for support and training? And that gives you a good sense of when you have a partner which is investing, you also want to invest, because there's a mutual belief that we can succeed together. So this is for me, that was for me the key recipe at the end of the day is how much money was at the end of the pipe, this working together. So as a distributor, that was really the priority. As a manufacturer, of course, it's a tough topic because as you mentioned, distributors, they want a wide portfolio. A lot of them want that. They want to be meaningful and relevant to the customers, and that means having a broad offering. As a manufacturer, you want distributors to spend time on your specific portfolio. So there's always a little bit of that tensions in the discussion between the two parties. But I think the solution, like Sandy said, is having a shared agenda around growth and market share. Like, this is, as long as you have an aligned marketing strategy with a clear agenda and you have sharing of the marketing efforts. So that the fact that you have a distributor doesn't mean that suddenly you're completely hands off with that market. I think it was also, and that I will mention that, you want to be present. You want to have distributor managers who are present with the distributors and who understand what is going on, what congress are they going to be attending, what kind of cost are they going to be investing, how will your product be displayed on the booth, customer events, customer education, investment, where the value proposition of your products will be displayed. So, you could even design with your distributor sales incentive around your product portfolio that will be rolled out to the sales force. So I think at the end of the day, it's all about the partnership, the discussions that you have, the agreements that you have, and the milestone that you set for you and the relationship to be successful. That's really how you are able to really engage your distributors into your product lines. And as a distributor, you get engaged into the manufacturer product line.
I'm going to wrap this question specifically with Adela. So as a manufacturer, how do you ensure that you're receiving a meaningful share of the distributor's selling time? I'll let you answer this one, and then we're going to wrap here in a few minutes.
Sorry, I just need to add one comment to the previous topic I was responding, and that was the red flag for vetting actually the distributor or partner. The actually very important is the financial stability of your distributors, right? So what Lynette is having is that we have insurance of liabilities of all our distributors and partners. And this service is coming together with some like notifications about like their financial statements and their financial health. And if something goes wrong, actually this external company, insurance company, would tell you that something's going wrong financially. So this is not costing a lot of money, and I would really recommend to every manufacturer to go for it, because they will do it for you, right? They evaluating, they have to, of course, agree to reveal their financial results and data, right? But this is the trust. This is the base of the partnership, right? So if you want to be partners, we need to be sure that we speak with like financially healthy partners, because there is investment on both sides. So that was just, sorry for that. That was just the comment for the previous question. Well, this is actually... The actually last question is very complicated because me as manufacturer, I would like to have 100% being devoted to my products, right? Yeah. But it's not of course possible. So I maybe will comment a little bit our, I would say, kind of best practice within the distributor structure. So when we having really successful and fast growing distributor, it's usually companies that they don't have that many products in their portfolio. It's usually they having some kind like 6 brands or 6 different types of products, and they really have, they dedicate at least some 20 or 30% of their time to linen beds. Because linen, well, beds are usually, very common product in hospital. It's not a cheap product, so there is a revenue, and they understand it, that they can earn quite nice money, right? And then it goes in between or within the segment. So of course, the more money you earn with the ICU products, right? So the more successful they are at the actually, higher clinical ranked and more added value product, right? They actually, and they are able to open this channel and be successful. So then this is the best fit, right? So how you do it from the beginning is, I would say, you have to really set up agenda. If it's a new partner and you start, you have to really set up agenda, because of course they're not going to have any sales in upcoming 2-3 months or even maybe a year, right? But you need to have, step by step, how you opening the market, from the market strategy, getting samples, being trained, going to or getting the first customers, or like kind of like pioneer customers, and getting the influencers to understand your products and the benefits of the products, right? And here, for example, this is important to be there with the partner, because there you can understand if they have the influence to get you this right relationship and those right people who will make those first decisions to buy your product and give you the trust. And then, well, they easily can convince the other customer and other buyers to buy your product, right? So I would say you really need to have an agenda, regular calls, and to follow your platform, like to do the myCaribou way, because the communication and set up goals and do step by step tie together, I think this is the ideal way. Yeah.
That's perfect. Thank you, Adela, for that last answer. And just to really quickly wrap up, I know we're right up against the hour mark, and I want to be respectful because I know people have probably meetings right after this. First, thank you to the panelists. Sandy's in Canada, Jacques is in France, Adela is in the Czech Republic. I'm in the US right now. We really appreciate your time today.